So, good evening, everybody. Welcome again to Dive In. I don't know why, for some reason, it feels like a long time since we did this. And I guess it's probably just a month. But very nice to be with you again. See some familiar faces. Good to see you all. Is there anybody here for the first time? Maybe just wave your hand. Yeah, there it goes, Louise. And I just want to go to the other screen. Andrew. Hi, Andrew. And wave your hand again. I'm just looking at some other. Oh, there we go. Mayavati. Oh, welcome. Great. Yeah, good to see you. Okay, so we have an interesting session planned this evening. It's a first, really. So I'm going to have, or we have, a guest joining us. So our guest is Gail Aylward, and Susan's going to pop Gail up. Hi, Gail.
Hey, hi Dom. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all and nice to be here.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much for coming along. So we did one session, some of you will remember a couple of months ago, on mindfulness. And it was such a rich session, beginning to look at really the sort of both the contrast between meditation or mindfulness and inquiry, and then the way that they kind of go together. So today's session, we're going to continue that thread. We're going to be looking a little more at how these two practices, which really are two distinct practices. I think it's not a case of, some people were saying it can get into, is it saying that inquiry is better than meditation? And it's definitely not about that. But what we're recognizing is that there are these two practices that both have something very important for our inner life, very important for the unfolding of our inner world. So today we're gonna explore a little further into that. So a couple of reminders, especially if you're new here. So this is a public forum, so anybody is welcome to come along. We do record it, and certainly parts of the recording will be made available online. What happens in the exercise, you will have a chance to do an exercise, and everything that happens in your breakout room is completely confidential. That's not recorded, but everything that happens in the main room, just be aware that that is being it's a forum that's unique in that we have a whole range of different levels of experience here. So there are people in the room who are completely new to inquiry, and there are people in the room who've been inquiring for decades. So hopefully, in our exploration of inquiry, everybody will get something useful, will find something helpful out of that. Yeah, I think that's mostly what I need to say. We're going to do a little guided practice at the beginning. We'll then, Gail and I will have a bit of a conversation and, explore some perspectives around meditation and inquiry. And then we're going to give you a chance to try it out for yourself. So you actually go and do a little exercise. That will take about 15 minutes or so. And then we'll all come back together, and we'd love to hear from you, to hear your questions, to hear what you discovered for yourself in the exercise. So that's broadly the plan for the next 90 minutes on. So to begin with, find a comfortable seated position. So a position that you would use for meditation. Or inquiry. Inquiry, of course, you don't need a particular posture, but you want to be upright and alert. And I'll invite you to remember, as we begin, some attitude of friendly interest. So you are approaching your inner world, approaching yourself, approaching your experience. And you want to do that as much as you can with a sort of friendly, warm, open, curious attitude. You don't know what you're going to find, and you're open to whatever that might be, to wherever you might be. So let your eyes close. Take a nice breath in through your nose, out through your mouth. Maybe another one. And I'm going to walk you into a practice that is part of the inquiry process that we call checking in. I want you to just begin to notice what's here in your inner world. So just right this moment, how are you feeling? What kind of feelings are around? Might be some feeling left over from what was going on earlier, some feeling as you're sitting down here to join the session. Whatever you notice. So notice the feeling, give it a word. So you're actually recognizing how you're feeling, what your feeling state is. Notice how your mind is. What's on your mind? What's been on your mind? Does your mind feel still and quiet? Does it feel restless or full of thoughts and dialogue? Full of pictures or memories? So remember, there's absolutely no right or wrong here. You're simply making space to notice whatever there is to be noticed. And notice the sensations of your body. As you begin to tune in there, like, what are you in touch with? What parts of your body draw your attention? What sensations are there? And as I'm guiding you through it, like, let yourself actually notice, giving words to what you're finding, even just in your thoughts. So with our inquiry, with our checking in, we're actually recognizing, actively recognizing what's here. And then I ask you one more question. And I say, where are you? Like, what's up for you? You've noticed the immediate things that are here. But if I ask you, like, what's really going on with you? Where are you this morning or this afternoon? What's got your attention? It may be these things that are just here that you've already mentioned. Or maybe there's some circumstance from your life that's occupying you. Conversation from earlier or some issue going on in your life. Just want to notice, what is that? What's up for you personally in this moment? So you give yourself a few moments to just recognize that. Recognize where you are. You may notice feelings that you're having, or thoughts that you're having about something, or sensations in your body that come alive as you begin to focus on whatever it is that's really up for you. So just taking a moment to let yourself be where you are with whatever is really going on for you. And to notice it, to begin to recognize it. Now take a moment and take a breath. Just notice, how has it affected you to take that short time to see where you are, to check in.
So having, with this kind awareness, checked in with the body, checked in to the mind, just checked in into your inner environment. The invitation now is to really come in and check into the breath. Just noticing what happens when you breathe in, when you take an inhalation, the parts of the body that expand, whether it's the chest, whether it's the belly, the gentle movement of the expansion, and then what happens as you breathe out. The soft, gentle letting go of this breath. So, mind may be busy, thoughts may be running the show, but what we're trying to do is just unhook gently, kindly, and just come back to the breath. Just coming back to this very simple act of breathing in and breathing out. Just noticing as you breathe in where the breath lands, whether it lands in the chest, whether it lands in the belly, whether it lands further down into the body. And again, feeling the soft release, the letting go as you breathe out. There may be sounds coming from elsewhere. The noisy sounds of the mind. But the invitation is to really, without making any fuss, just let go of any of that and all of that and come back to this breath and really sensing the breath breathing in the body. The fluidity of the breath. The expansion, the release. Feeling the breath in the breath. And as we get more sensitive or attuned to the breath, we'll notice, is this a short breath or a long breath? Does it feel like a full breath or is it a shallow breath? Is it a soft breath or does it feel a little bit more rough? Again, no judgment that it should be any other way than it is at this moment. Just for opening up to that kind, gentle attention in this breath, in this moment, in this body.
And then let go of that practice. And once again, just notice where you are now. Notice your state now, how you're feeling, how it's affected you. And then when you're ready to, you can begin sensing your arms and your legs, feeling the sensations of your arms and your legs. Consciously sensing. And then add listening. Consciously listening, sensing the sounds. And when you're ready to, opening your eyes and consciously looking. Sensing your visual sense. Seeing your environment. And so you're sensing, looking, and listening. So you might remember that if you were here in our first session on inquiry and mindfulness, we did it the other way around. Yeah, we started with meditation, entering the immediacy of our experience and just being in touch with it. And then we added inquiring. We added the active exploration of the content. Right? So these two practices sort of sit side by side. And what they offer us really is two very different and very important ways of engaging with the content of our experience. And in very simple terms, when we are inquiring, we are actually engaging with the content, right? We're interested in the content. We want to find out about this content, like what's going on? How are we feeling? What's making it happen? We want to discover the what of our experience, the actual detail of where we are personally and what it is that's arising in our consciousness, whatever that might be, right? Whatever that, anything. And in time we get curious about it. Like we want to know how come, what's making that happen? What's bringing that about? And some of you, as you will know, as we begin to do that, we begin following and opening up the inner world. So it's like diving in and we begin to see all the things that there are to see in the ocean, the creatures and the fish and the seaweeds and the whole lot. And we begin to understand what they're doing there. Whereas in the meditation, what we do primarily is to put down the content. We let it go. Gail was so beautifully saying there, we let the content go, the thoughts, the feelings, it's all fine, but we're letting it go. So we're learning not to be totally hooked into our content, but to be able to give it space too. So these two practices go beautifully together. And Gail, I wonder if you'd like to share something about, your own experience as a teacher of mindfulness and somebody who's been engaged in that path for so long. And as someone who's also a diamond approach teacher, I'm curious what you would say about these two practices and these two approaches.
Thank you, Dom. Well, I get shivers just as you say that, because they're two such important practices, or at least for my own journey. and the practice of meditation, of mindfulness. I've been practicing for 30 years nearly now, and it feels like it was fundamental in some ways for me then being ready and ripe for the practice of inquiry. You know, and I'm talking about my own personal journey. We're all different, and we all come in with, you know, our different histories, our different needs, beliefs, etc. But for myself, I hadn't realized how important the mindfulness was until I started to practice inquiry. And it felt like, you know, the earth had been worked with the practice of mindfulness, the practice of practicing where your attention lands. Noticing, oh, I'm here, I'm caught up in my thoughts, or I'm distracted with outside noises. You know, just by having practiced that over the years, when it came to the inquiry practice, I just felt like it just catapulted into another realm somehow. And I feel so thankful to have had my sort of Buddhist mindfulness practice beforehand. It just felt like it made this body, this soul, ripe for the work of inquiry. So for myself, there's not a sense of one is better than the other. You know, in some ways, the two, they just came together very beautifully. And, you know, in the inquiry, we are still, you know, the attention is still being cultivated, you know, but then, as you said, we're really encouraged and invited to go into the content of what's arising for us. And that, I think, is where, in a way, that's where the paths maybe slightly change. So whereas there can be the invitation to be aware of in the mindfulness, I wouldn't say it was to the same extent as in the inquiry. You know, we're really encouraged, oh, what's happening here? Oh, there's a memory, there's a thought, there's a story. And the invitation is to go deeper into that. Oh, yes, I remember when I was 5 and my mum took this away, or, you know, whatever the scenario might have been. And then feeling the effects of that story in the body show up. You know, it's that same for me. It's the same practice of mindfulness in a way, but with the invitation to go even deeper. And then bringing in the element, you know, the arm of the whole psychology as well, which for my own practice was really invaluable and was really needed.
And a lot of that really comes up, of course, through the process and like the talking, right? I mean, in inquiry, we're just talking. We talk a lot. We talk, or we're writing, or we're talking, we're doing monologues. So there is that whole process of actually articulating your experience. But of course, what makes our kind of inquiry different from various other kind of talking approaches is that it is a talking and an articulation that is taking place within that field of mindfulness, within actually being directly present and in touch with the immediacy of the experience. So it makes so much sense to me, as you say, you know, that having had that practice of just being aware, cultivating that capacity to be aware, that really would make for such a rich ground that then the inquiry could land in, could then, you know, open up and start exploring the details of what was there.
Yeah, for sure. And I really feel if I hadn't had that, and again, I speak for myself because we're all different, but if I hadn't had that background, it would have been different, you know, because the cultivation of awareness, of mindfulness had been there for many years beforehand. And
Oh,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
go ahead.
I have a question though.
Oh, well, okay. And also, you know, we talk about, you said about the inquiry that we're able to articulate, whereas with the mindfulness, it's more inward, you know, being mindful without the words, but there's something very powerful in the articulation of what we're experiencing in the moment. And I mentioned this earlier with you, Dom, there's something also I feel is, for some of us, is so important to have the witnesses there. the witnesses who are, sitting in their own presence and just being these mirrors for this body, this soul, this expression that perhaps we didn't get in our upbringing. I think some of us really maybe lack the mirroring in our presence. That I think is kind of crucial. But, of course, no parent can be there 24/7, but, some to one degree to another. But if we did lack that in our upbringing, then the power of inquiry, I think, is even greater. Yeah.
Yeah. Inquiring with somebody else there.
Yeah.
Right? Just the beauty of being able to articulate your experience in the presence of another person. Yeah, that's wonderful. I had a question about the articulation. Like, as someone who did a lot of mindfulness and had that as your primary practice, like I've noticed when I have students that have that background, inquiry students, they have a very strong tendency to want to let go of their experience, right? So they'll have a feeling, or they'll have a mind, have a thought or an idea or even a memory, and a temptation or that often comes up is they want to just let it go, right? Or see that it's not real, or kind of move away from it in a certain way. And I wonder if you could say something about that. Like, how was your journey with that? Was that something you had to discover? Or I'm curious what you could say.
Yeah. I mean, you're correct when you describe that. There is the invitation to not get caught up in content. So the idea of just letting things go, the clouds passing through the sky, we don't attach to that. But what we're doing is we're looking at the brightness of the sky or the sun shining through. That's the kind of the awareness, the attention. And yet there's something, I just had something there. It's just gone. There's something about practicing with the content. It's gone now. The mindfulness has gone. I'm mindful that it's gone.
And I'm curious about it.
Yeah, so am I. I'm hoping it will come back because it felt quite crucial to that. There is definitely the invitation in mindfulness to not get attached to content.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like, being aware of thoughts. And if you're aware of thoughts, you are not those thoughts. So then that can take the pressure of, we can have all different kinds of thoughts. And we know about the inner critic and the judgmental thoughts. So by having space from the thoughts, it gives us, kind of a breather. Whatever this is going on here, that's not who I am. If we can embody that. Because I remember when that first happened to me, it was a real kind of physical insight. Oh, I am not my thoughts. And it gave a certain freedom as well in that.
Yes, that's wonderful. And so to kind of recognize that there is more than just the particular content, that, right, there's more, what you are is more than just those thoughts.
Exactly.
And yet, when I think about it, the invitation and inquiry is in a certain way so different to kind of say, well, actually, you were doing this, with the inner critic. Of course, it often is over there. And to go, okay,
amongst different places,
there's my inner critic, and it's telling me these messages, and I'm having these thoughts, and to actually go, well, like, how are those thoughts affecting me? God, they're making me feel terrible about myself. And what exactly is it saying? To want to get so clear and so precise about what the judgment is, what it's saying, and how it's affecting you. And then even that you have a reaction to it enough to go, and how do I feel about it? Well, I hate that. I wish you would just get lost, right? Which is the kind of thing that can happen. So as we become more conscious of those thoughts and see how they affect us, in time, something spontaneously arises that goes, get out of here. I don't want to listen to that anymore. And in that way, we become free from it.
Exactly.
So what strikes me is we know for sure that these two practices are, let's say, they're both essential. right? You have got to be able, at least in the diamond approach, and now I'm talking in a sense in a complete path, right? In a complete path, we need to be able to engage with the content, and it is very important to be able to put it down.
Yes.
And this is why we do the concentration practice, we do at groups at different times do other meditations. But whenever you're doing meditation, the invitation is to just let go of the content. Let the content be what it is. It's not important. You are practicing letting it go and not being consumed by it. So whether you're doing specifically mindfulness or doing some other meditation, that is always a necessary practice. And then alongside that, we have the inquiry in which we can actually go into the content and open it up to discover its riches and its secrets.
Yeah. And so meditation is crucial, I feel, for this path, like you said, the mindfulness section and the inquiry, because we're cultivating like you say, not getting caught up in content. It's about coming back. And so we use the breath. The breath is fantastic. It's with us all the time. We can use it in the car, wherever, in the queue, in the shopping queue. And it's just bringing us back here without getting caught up with everything that's going on around. And similarly with the content in inquiry, there's a point where we do need to let go of the content. It's so important that we do get into the storyline. We do, we explore, we become curious. It's a beautiful expression of inquiry. But if we notice, we start to, if after how many sessions, I don't know what the number is, we're ruminating around the same thing and again and again and again, and nothing's shifting, then sometimes maybe the best course would be, okay, let go of that. And, really just come back here and sense what's happening here. So it's a good balance is needed in both of these practices.
And it also highlights for me the difference between, a practice and, in a sense, a whole path. So this dive in and, this work that I'm doing here, as you all know, is oriented around the practice of inquiry, learning how to inquire, right? How to explore the content of your inner world in a profoundly transformative way, right? In a way that is surprising because it is so open and so interested and so fully in touch with whatever it is that happens to be true for you. And we just want to find out what that is, right? What's really true for me. So that's a practice. Right? That's a practice that engages us with our content in a certain way. And meditation is a practice that helps us develop the ability to also let go of the content and not be completely identified with it. I remember actually it was Karen Johnson, one of the co-originators of the Diamond Approach, saying at some point she realized how important meditation was because otherwise she was just completely sort of totally sucked into the content. Right? That's useful. There's something good about being so engaged with your content, but you also need that time, that period of meditation to be conscious and aware and be able to just let it go for a while.
Yeah, and that's such the good balance. And that's kind of what I was pointing to. We can start, if we get too caught up in the content. And I was the other side, whereas there was the foundation of meditation was very rich and very clear. And there was a lot coming up for me and I didn't know what to do with it, and it was on that level, it was on a psychological level. And I just felt like, oh, I can feel this blockage. The awareness was there, right there. I didn't know what to do with it. So coming to the Diamond Approach School and the practice of inquiry then allowed me to really go into that which was needed for me at that time. And so it was, I can't express how grateful I was to have found this practice, to work with the issues that were being brought up to the surface. That for me, the practice of mindfulness didn't quite address. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody because we're all different. But for me at that time, maybe, having babies running centers, there wasn't quite the same, I didn't have quite the same time to have that full deep meditation practice. But inquiry came just when I needed it. So I feel, very grateful to have this ongoing practice.
Yeah, beautiful. And it really seems to me how complementary they are. So, if you're somebody whose primary path is meditation, the meditation can be your principal path if you're a mindfulness like practitioner, and that's your main path. And inquiry then is a separate, a distinct practice that you can use alongside that to help you work with the content as it arises. So you can bring clarity and understanding to the content. Because, I think we spoke more about this last time, but it's well known that in meditation, your stuff starts coming up, all kinds of things will start bubbling into your awareness, and you need some tool to be able to engage with it, whether you take it to therapy or you sort of work with it using something like inquiry. And if you're an inquiry person, if inquiry is your primary path, it can still be your primary path, but you can really appreciate the value that meditation has to offer alongside it. That even though your love for the adventure and the exploration and all the discoveries and the richness of the path of inquiry can be there, there's still something very valuable in, on a daily basis, taking some time to put it down and just practice your meditation.
Yeah, most definitely. And it cultivates the awareness that we're using in our life all the time, just to see, habit patterns arising during daily life. So it's such a good practice. And with the inquiry, even more so.
Beautiful. So I think we'd like to give you a chance to check this out again for yourself. So you did, at the beginning, we walked you into it. And now we'd like to give you a chance to put these two practices side by side once again, and to see for yourself what is the effect. Right? So the way we're going to do this, you're going to find yourself in a breakout room in groups of 2. So there'll be one other person. And what we'd like you to do is to each take 5 minutes, right? So in your 5 minutes, if it's your turn, you just do a monologue inquiry for 5 minutes. So what does that mean? If you're not familiar with inquiry, you just want to take some time to get in touch with yourself, get in touch with your experience, and explore what's there, whatever it is that's actually going on for you, just like we did at the beginning. So you're noticing what you're feeling, noticing the sensations of your body or your consciousness, noticing what's on your mind, noticing what kinds of issues or things are occupying you, and allowing yourself to be as deeply in touch with all of that as you can, and to be curious about it, to see it and feel it and sense it as fully as you can, and to begin to explore it. So it's just 5 minutes. It's a short inquiry, but you take some time to just find out what's up for you, where you are. One person does that. The other person is a completely neutral, silent witness. So they just sit there, they don't say anything. You're sensing your arms and legs, if you know what that is. You're just being present, letting the other person do their inquiry, letting them go wherever they go, right? So you don't need to react to anything. You just let them be where they are. At the end of that, they do their 5 minutes, you swap over. And then you take 5 minutes and you do 5 minutes of just exploring whatever is up for you. And remember, you don't have to make anything up. It's really as if you're sitting down with your best friend and just finding out where you are. And, it's almost like a combination between being meditatively in touch with yourself and, having a fireside chat about just what's going on for you, right? So you do that, 5 minutes each. After that, take 5 minutes to just sit in silence. So you both close your eyes and bring your attention to the sensations of your breath in your belly, right? Just feeling the movement of your belly as you breathe. In that 5 minutes, right, that's all you have to do. You can let go of the content. Thoughts can be there, feelings can be there, anything can be there, but you're not putting your attention on it. You're not putting your focus on it. You're putting your focus onto the sensation of the breath in the belly. Okay, so you can treat that as time off, time to let go of all that content, all those problems, or all those feelings and thoughts. You can let it all go. You don't even have to try and get rid of it. It's even easier and more letting go than that. You just bring your attention to your belly and let that all do whatever it wants to do. Okay. So you have 5 minutes each of inquiry and then 5 minutes of just sitting, sensing your belly. So it'll be 15 minutes in total. And then we will come back here to share and discuss and explore what you found. If you are not going to do the exercise, I would invite you to please drop off now and come back at, say, past. So we'll start again at just before that, but around about past is fine. If you're going to do the exercise, then stay on now and Susan will pop you in a breakout room. If you are not familiar with inquiry, you're a complete beginner, wonderful, then invite the other person to go first, because you might also get something about it from what they do. They might be a useful example for you. Alrighty, so 15 minutes. I hope you enjoy your time to just hang out with yourself and find out with yourself, and then some time off to just relax all together and just sense your belly. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. And we have some space now, time for questions, for comments. And if you have any questions at all around meditation, around mindfulness, around inquiry, for Gail or I, please, now's your chance. Come forward with them. And we'd love to hear from you. How was it to do these two practices side by side? What did you notice about the inquiry and then the meditation afterwards? I'm very curious if you have something to share about that or anything you'd like to say. So, opening it up to all of you. If you have a question, please raise your electronic hand, and then so you do that with the participants button at the bottom, and then Susan will spotlight you and ask you to unmute yourself. So Lucy, go ahead.
Hi, Tom. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I found that so interesting to do what for me is the practices in reverse. So I'm more familiar with doing the meditation and then inquiry. And so that was it was just so interesting. And I found that it was actually, my mind was stiller doing the meditation than I think it would have been if I hadn't done an inquiry first, where I was trying to stay as present with my in the moment experience and had already slowed down and become more body aware. And so by the time I got to the meditation, it was just a lovely sort of digestion of the shared time together and just a lovely experience. So it was really just the reversal that was so intriguing.
Beautiful. I'm glad you noticed that. We were actually talking a bit about that in the break. How that often seems to be what happens, that in a way our meditation, when we just sit down to meditate, often exposes content, things that are actually going on inside us. And if you first had some time to actually just notice that and settle with it and inquire about it a bit, that sometimes, not always, but sometimes then the meditation is much stiller. Right?
That was my experience. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for sharing that. And Gail, just jump in if you
Sure.
think to add. Yeah, Tia.
Oh, uh, yeah, I've kind of got a question, and my experience was that I I have a lot of like tenseness and fear and anxiety in my chest, and I think I said that once to you before, and that's where I always bypass that and look for where am I, because it has become so normal for me to have this clogged up area in my chest. So even I've been practicing not doing that, of just being with what is, and mostly I just don't know what's going on, and that seems to that's very challenging to me. But this time I was able to settle in that, and I became very, very relaxed. And I had to fight then not to fall asleep. So that's kind of new for me. I'm not tired. And that's been happening the past few weeks too, that I just fall asleep. The same kind of a feeling that when I go to bed at night and I'm falling asleep, and there's nothing I can do about it. Well, I wonder if that's what that's about, falling asleep.
Is that in the meditation? Yeah.
Well, just when I finally do begin to relax into where I am. I kind of see it as some kind of a big resistance in me, but
Well, maybe. I mean, if you don't take a position on it, right? Because it sounds like what you said there is you were actually able to be with what was happening in your heart, and you were just with it, and then something relaxed, right? So you can say, oh, it's a resistance. I mean, honestly, it sounds more like you were just relaxing with your experience, right? You were not kind of in fact, you weren't pushing it away or trying to get away from it. Quite the opposite. At least that's what you just said to us.
yeah, you know what? You have a good point. You have a very good point, because I don't know what it's like to relax.
Right.
And now I'm feeling that it's just like,
Right. So you're
so
actually sound like you're being with the experience in your heart, which, might be uncomfortable, but at least in that moment you were just being with it. You were not trying to fight it off or do anything with it.
yeah,
In that moment you started to relax.
yeah, I'm just not used to it.
So there might be something altogether new there.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it's good.
And
Sounds
just
like
even
good news.
saying that, sorry, I was going to say, just even saying you're not used to it, that also is something that feels really important, just not being used to relaxing. And
No, I'm never relaxed.
yeah.
Never. So, except for that delightful moment, just when I'm falling asleep so it's that same letting go. It's just
So you seem to like that moment.
oh yeah, it's very nice. But but I didn't like that fell asleep.
Uh-huh. So, in your practice, right?
Yeah.
So again, two different practices, right? So in your meditation practice, of course, you want to see what you can do to allow the relaxation and to continue sensing your belly, right? So relaxation happens from the point of view of the meditation, doesn't matter, you just continue sensing your belly, right? If you do find that you keep falling asleep, then you can use some tool to help you stay awake, like just sit more upright, maybe have your eyes even a little more open. So that can help you stay awake so that you can continue practicing even while that relaxation is happening. And then from the point of view of inquiry, when the time comes, you can inquire into that relaxed state. You can sit there and you can go, oh, well, what's this like? If I let myself relax and I just describe how it feels, well, it feels like an easy letting go. I feel some deliciousness all through my body. Oh, I start to feel heavier. So you can see there is a way that you can let the relaxation happen and continue inquiring, right?
Mm, mm.
That's an interesting skill to develop, right? To be able to allow the relaxation and even the sleepiness. I start to feel very sleepy. My mind goes very quiet. Everything feels very still, right? So you can still be letting that happen and even still inquiring. Right?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thanks, Tia. And we have Sue. Hey, Sue.
Hello. Yeah, so like Lucy said, I also enjoyed the meditation after the inquiry. And I've noticed that before because somehow naming, like just naming what's present, somehow just, I don't know, calms everything down and makes it much easier to drop into a meditation. So yeah, well, should I say, I shouldn't say I knew that was going to be good before it happened, but yeah. But there was something very interesting. It was very interesting seeing you and Gail on the screen tonight discussing this because I have 13 years in Buddhist community. I've got a lot of associations with mindfulness and a lot of associations with this idea of letting it go, negative association with the letting it go. And so there was a lot of stuff stimulated by the two of you talking. But there was a new insight in the meditation that happened, which was like re-languaging it for myself. Instead of saying let it go, it's almost like choosing not to engage, taking a break from engaging, put it down for now, something like this, which is different to that. I think I associate letting it go with it doesn't matter, it's not important, like the sort of Buddhist thing that I've experienced, which is, oh, that's just the mind, that's just a reactivity, that's just the soul child, whatever. And so what I was doing was just take a break, put it down, and then focusing on the breath. And so it was the joy of letting go, really, is what happened. I just felt this joy of this space, the space in between the stories. Yeah. So it's quite interesting to sort of have that go, hey, I actually quite like letting go.
And that's beautiful because, like you said, just by re-languaging, somehow the words landed more fully here. It made more sense because I really understand this terminology of letting go. It can get thrown out there so easy. It's like, okay, we could all let it go. It would be all so easy. But there's something about, the words that I sometimes use is letting be, that feels like there's less pressure.
Yes.
Than trying to let go.
Yes.
That's really beautiful that you found something that's worked for you at this time, Sue. Yeah.
Yes.
There's a
Yes.
difference.
And also Dom saying not engaging. I think you said not engage. You choose to engage or not engage. So it's like, and then there's a choosing not to engage, like a choice, something like empowerment, something like there's a value in not engaging. That doesn't mean you'll never engage. So yeah, it's actually, even though it was quite challenging to look at this topic together, it's really, really quite useful.
Wonderful. It sounds like also, and I really recognize this in some other people I've worked with mindfulness background, there is something that you could peel apart, like some sort of dismissal of the content, right? In the letting it go, like it's not real, it doesn't, it's not important, and to recognize it's not true, and it doesn't need to be about that. Right?
Exactly.
It can be completely important and completely all of those, and totally irrelevant. And as you said so well, it's great to be able to just go, take a break for a bit. I'm just gonna put it down for a while.
Yeah, exactly it. Yeah. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Hello, Dom. Hello, Gail. Thank you both for the practice. I have a question about meditation. For me, there seems to be two distinct ways of meditating. I'm sitting on a bench And I think of a cough meditation as a concentration meditation, and it seems more for me contractive, or I'm focusing down, whereas more of a, I'm not sure what you're talking about, letting things go seems more expansive, seems just, I don't know, more light, more airy. And it seems like I can either choose to do one or the other, and I can't seem to choose to do both. So I just wonder if you could comment on the different, I mean, am I looking at this in a weird way, a way to reframe it, where it just, they seem like two different ways of meditating, or two different ways of being and sitting still. So.
Beautiful. So you point to, you know, kind of two common styles of practice. I think there are many, but two are concentration meditation and awareness meditation. And as you say, like, concentration practice sort of tends to have a focus, right? That we are actually placing our attention somewhere on an object of concentration and letting that be a focus. Whereas in awareness meditation, we tend to be opening it up, right? Opening the whole field of awareness. So you're right on, right? You're not
Okay.
not missing a trick here. The thing that can help, that in a certain way kind of brings them closer together or makes them less seem less at odds, is that in, say, the cough meditation, the belly concentration practice, so it's true, you have an object of concentration, you are placing your attention on your belly, and you're doing your best to just continue attending to that, right? It actually doesn't mean you do anything about everything else. You don't have to get rid of it. You don't have to change it. The whole field of awareness can be what it is, right? It's still there. It's not like it kind of goes away. It's just not where you are particularly placing your active attention, right? So you said it in the sense of it being a closing down. Right? So and what I'm pointing to here is that it is possible, just like you can have the whole ocean going on and you can just be placing your hands on the rock in front of you, right? Everything else is still happening. You're just got your hand on the rock, right? It's kind of like that, right? So that may make it, it can, put it this way, it's still a concentration practice, but it can have a bit more ease and openness to it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, okay.
And,
Thank you.
and to say that we specifically use the concentration practice at the beginning with inquiry because we do actually need to cultivate the capacity for concentration, right? To be able to place your attention on something, like something you're exploring in your inner world, and to be able to stay with it, right? That's actually really important. But it's also true, and usually we do this after people have been inquiring for, a number of years, where they've got the capacity to concentrate. We also do usually at some point bring in an awareness practice, because just as much as you need to be able to focus and zero in and kind of stay concentrated on where you're placing your attention, you also need to be able to, have your awareness be open and see everything that's actually going on. So there really is a role for both meditation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I tend to, I'll sit down and meditate and think what I need for that particular day. But for some reason, sometimes the superhero comes like, well, you should do the cough meditation. But it's like, no, this is what I need. I need the more awareness meditation. But just I'll play around with it. But I appreciate the comments on it. Thank you.
It's great you have that sensitivity to recognize what you're actually needing in that.
Thank you.
Mayavati.
Hello, everyone. And thank you, Gail. Thank you, Dom, for a very rich topic. I've been really enjoying this teaching today. My question is around not so much two formal practices, compare and contrast, but what do each of you actually do in a day-to-day way? I have a mindfulness background prior to coming to the Diamond approach. And for me, mindfulness would be about placing hands in the water whilst washing up. We'll use that perhaps as an example. And that's predominantly a sensory presence without words. And I'm just wondering if your inquiry remains sort of circumscribed to formal times, and to maybe when you're carrying out personal inquiry through the day, oh, such and such happened, I better sit down and just take a look at what really happened there, you know, sort of doing some, but actually moment to moment, what happens? Do you add in the inquiry?
That's a great question, and it's a really good observation. And it just reminds me of Thich Nhat Hanh, whose center is not very far from where I live, actually, in southwest France. And that whole thing of washing up, washing the dishes mindfully. And, you know, I know that, you know, I think it's part of the diamond approach work as well. There's something about being embodied, yeah, which, you know, unhooking from busy mind, and it sort of goes a little bit to the question that was being asked just earlier. It's about inhabiting this location, inhabiting the body, sensing, feeling, to the point that we're 80% here and 20% with the other, whatever the other is, whether it's a person, whether it's an activity. But the mindfulness is, you know, it's really about coming back to oneself. And the inquiry and the diamond approach is about coming back, constantly coming back and sensing. So when you talk about washing up, whether it's brushing the teeth, having that first tea or coffee, you know, there's so many opportunities that we can practice mindfulness. And I actually have a meditation center here. So, you know, just hearing the bell ring each throughout the day, it's that invitation to come back, sense, you know, and feel oneself. So, you know, my own personal practice is the meditation for sure in the mornings, and whether that's the focused or the open awareness, it also depends. But the idea of once I get up off the cushion is to keep that practice of mindfulness, to stay close and intimate with walking from here to there, going downstairs. And of course, it's not 100% by any means. That's why I like the word practice, because it gives us the, you know, it allows us to keep coming back again and again. So it's really about being with oneself, like sensing, feeling the presence that's naturally here when we're embodied in this place. So I don't know whether that answered your question or not, but that's my practice. And Dom, how is it for you?
Well, I would say that, just to add to what you're saying there, that of course, you know, within the diamond approach, the principal way that we're doing that is with our sensing, looking, and listening.
Yeah.
So sensing, looking, and listening is just a continual practice of being in touch with your sensory experience in addition to whatever else is going on. And I would say for myself, the inquiry, it's impossible to say. There are times, so I have particular times where I sit down with people and I inquire, right? So inquiry buddies that I meet with, you know, on a weekly basis. I have times where I will just sit down on my own to inquire, like specifically to inquire into something. And there is a lot of inquiry that just happens on the fly, you know, in a sense, in a way, that kind of curious, exploratory in-touchness with your experience, at some point can be going on a lot of the time, right? So it's not limited, I would say, to just formal times of practice, although there are formal times of practice, right? So my whole interest in Dive in the book, in the courses, everything that we do is to help people learn that kind of open inquiry, right? Where it is just about getting in touch with yourself, noticing what's there, and really being able to explore and deepen and understand whatever it is that's coming up for you. So for me, that could be going for a walk. It could be just sitting over my coffee, or, you know, while I'm doing my shopping, you know, some of that can be going on a lot of the time. And if I'm honest about it, I would say it's interesting actually looking at it in terms of that balance between being engaged in the content in that kind of a way and just being in the sensing, looking and listening, just being in the kind of more mindful type practice. And I would say if my balance kind of could use a little fine tuning, I could probably do a little more of that. That the inquiry is a more sort of ongoing kind of thing that's happening a lot of the time. And that sometimes it might be useful to do more just sensing and walking, or sensing and doing something. So I think for each of us, they can be, so it's an interesting thing to look into and to see where you are with it. What do you see? What's your balance?
Thank you both for those answers. Yes, I think the mindfulness habit has created a sort of preference for where I put my attention. And I tend to see, in terms of presence during a day, and I tend to see inquiry as something that I would come away from an experience in order to do. Yeah. Rather than it sounds as though your inquiring is a little bit more integrated. And that is really what my question is about, I suppose. How does one actually integrate these two things outside of the formal practice periods?
Yeah, exactly. And for me, and as you're saying there, I would notice it more the other way around. Like I have to take a break from the inquiry to be just sensing and, do something.
Well, thank you both very much. Thank you.
So let's see, we still have just about time. We're coming to time. We may run 1 or 2 minutes over. So Sophia.
Hello, Dom and Gail. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to share how I noticed very clearly in the exercise that I have a strong preference for inquiry compared to meditation. And the preference is largely to do with how my capacity to focus, I would say it's 10 times better, stronger when I'm in inquiry mode, so to speak, as opposed to meditation. And I noticed also in the exercise how part of what happens for me, I judge my lack of capacity to stay focused in meditation all of the time or most of the time. It's just interesting.
Very good. Very interesting to see that, Sophia. And is one of the things that I notice that's very important to do with meditation is to take seriously your superego's engagement in your meditation practice. So in the meditation itself, you just meditate, but afterwards, it is very useful to actually inquire into that and to take that on, because those superego judgments that are hanging around how you meditate and what goes on in your period of meditation will be a barrier really to kind of being able to really sort of rest into the practice and benefit from it, because you're just engaged in the judgment all the time. And that's where the inquiry afterwards can be so one of the places that's just really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. It makes me see what a rich, like the interplay between these two is actually incredibly rich. So yeah, great, thanks. And then another quick one from Jan. Maybe we can just make it.
Yes, I could go just quickly to the question, a little bit of background maybe. When I first joined the inquiry, I had a very strong icy feeling in my left arm, which was related to some kind of pre-verbal fear. And today, as soon as I joined the screen, a feeling of tension came in my shoulder, which I kind of intuitively knew was associated with the same thing. I'm kind of deducing that this is something that can be addressed specifically through this technique, because I don't
contact it and I have other things that I use, but don't contact it in the same way. So the question then, when we went into the cuff, you call it cuff meditation, I kind of, I'm not sure if I do that in the way that you suggest, but anyway, the way that I did it seemed to release that feeling around the shoulder. So the question I have really is, I kind of think there's two, at least anyway, two approaches. So one might be to realize the emotional underlying energy and understand something about that in order to start to let things go. But this was just purely doing that practice seemed to sort of release it for that moment. And what the question is, is that practice overriding? Is it somehow resetting or re-entraining an energy when you use that practice? You know, so if I notice it's letting go, if I do that frequently, would it re-entrain that energy to flow better? Or would you say, you know, and if that's so, would I not need to consciously understand what that's all about? Or...
Yeah, very, very good question. And I would say really something to explore. Right? So, I mean, I couldn't say if Gail has any views, but I couldn't say from what you've said, what made that happen. But that's something you can be curious about, right? So you can, in time, like afterwards, you could inquire into it. Like, oh, okay, so what happened as I just concentrate on my breathing, on my belly? Well, just notice what happens that seems to affect your shoulder. So that's an interesting thing, you know, that you could actually explore and try to see what you can find out about it. You know, if there is something that unhooks, it'll give you an interesting contrast to see. And if it is something in your personality or some piece of history or some emotional thing that needs to be understood, it will come back. You don't have to worry about that. You know, it will show up and it will come into your inquiry for your exploration, you know, as it needs to.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where to put my focus, because one technique, the deepening, going into the emotion, I've tried over time to do that, and it's not shifting terribly much.
Yeah, so the inquiry, I mean, again, I would say there's place for both, right? So there is a value in just doing the meditation, but the inquiry has got something to open up there. There is something to explore and understand. So, you know, they might both be useful. It's not an either or, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's something about a meditation practice when we begin to meditate, often the tensions that we're carrying around in our bodies that we're not aware of, when we start to meditate, that sometimes they can be released. You know, I've seen
I'm a long-term meditator, but so this has come up specifically in this this kind of yeah, I believe there's something to do with the whole oh, what would you say? I don't know. You know, everybody together focusing on the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely something for some more exploration, I would say. Yeah. Good. So I think we need to stop here. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for showing up and bringing your questions and your experience here. So it really is such a rich topic. Makes me think we'll have even more sessions on this at some point. And Gail, thank you so much, really, for coming along, for being our first guest here. It's really been really wonderful to have you. So really, thanks.
You're most welcome. Thank you for the invitation and the richness of the conversations and the curiosities and questions. So it's lovely to be here with you all. Thank you, Dom.
Yeah, you're welcome. And so the recording will be posted on the Dive In website in due course. We're meeting, Susan has put the dates in the chat. We're meeting again next month on the 14th of June, same Zoom link. Please feel free to let people know about it, invite other people who might like to join us. You can see lots of the past recordings on the Dive In website. And yeah, look forward to seeing you there, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And maybe by the next Dive In with Dom, we'll have some exciting news about courses. So just a heads up that there might be some exciting news in the pipeline. And if you do have any questions or suggestions, things you'd like to hear about on Dive In, then feel free to be in touch. I'd love to hear from you. All right. And until then, I wish you a rich exploration.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you all
you.
very much.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.